Hey guys, this is Izam and welcome back to another video. It's going to be a very short intro and no outro, but anyway, and I hope you enjoy this video. This is just a remake of what I did before. What I did before was just a speed painting, not a tutorial, but today's video is a tutorial. I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy. Hey guys, so today I'm going to paint the cherry blossom, which is the Sakura tree. I'm going to do it in watercolor as well as spray paint. So I'm going to use this watercolor brush. I'm going to use a second brush, and I'm going to begin using this color. This is the pink color. This is the size. I'm setting size to 140. And let's begin. Just draw something like this. Heavy at the bottom, but light at the top. Something like this. And before we dry, we need to use the water brush, I like to call it, and then just push the color out. Something like this. Push the color out until it fades. Something like this. Alright. Okay. Now we've got this. This is the base layer. We're going to add some more color. So I'm going to use a different layer. Now I'm going to use a much darker color, so darker than this pink, so one step higher. Change back to the watercolor brush, and this time I'm setting the size to a bit smaller. So let's begin. So I'm just drawing some dots over here, circles, not dots. I'm not tapping on them, I'm just giving a whirl, something like this. Okay, alright, then I'm gonna use the water brush and spread this out. And dry. The next thing we're going to do is this, a fun one. We're going to get the hairspray. I think it's called an hairspray, spray brush, whatever it is. So we're going to get this. I'm going to change the color. I would change the size to the third one, and now we're going to change the color to a much darker pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap and hold and bring the color here, somewhere to the right. Much darker pink. So let's test first, alright? So to do this, it's best to create a new layer so that it will not be destructive. Now this is the test. As you can see, it spreads out very, very wide area. Now if we were to shrink it, see what happens? It shrinks to a wide area, and the splatter is also a bit small, but doesn't matter. We will remember this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo, pressing two fingers on the screen to undo. And now I'm going to use this size, and let's see what happens. Wow, it's so huge. So I'm going to decrease the size. See, it's very dense, it's concentrated at the center, unlike the last one, which is like that, very sparse. Now let's just compare with the first one. What will happen? Okay, take note, it's very light even though the size is the biggest. So which shall we choose? So I think I'm gonna go for the biggest one where it's like that, sparse. But if I were to increase the size, it's going to be like this. So let's undo that and let's see what we're going to get. I'm just going to set the size to about 300 and let's begin. Just tap. This is a bit too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the opacity to about 65 and just test. Okay, this looks good. So I'm just going to tap and tap and tap. Alright, this looks quite good. I'm just going to continue tapping. And then I'm going to change the color one step lower and just tap, continue tapping. Maybe I'm going to set the size bigger, just tap. Not too much, just as long as you have some splatter over here and there. And then finally the light pink. Just gonna have a bit of splatter over here, over there. Now the next thing we're gonna do is have a very light pink, some maybe even close to white. Okay, so I'm gonna choose this color, I'm gonna add, and then I'm gonna splatter, but I'm going to use a much smaller size. And let's try. Alright, let's try it out. What will happen? This is a bit too small, so maybe let's change to this size. This is terrible. Okay, I'm gonna undo that. So I think we'll stick back to the third one and just paint. Maybe a bigger size over here. Alright, so and maybe a bit more here. So we're done. There's nothing to dry, so it's already dried. So this is done. Now we're gonna draw the tree trunk. So I'm just gonna add a new layer. For the tree trunk, for the moment we'll just stick to this, to the highest level of the layer, and we're going to change the brush to the watercolor brush. I'm using the smallest brush. I'm going to set the opacity to the highest. I'm going to set the size to the highest as well. I'm going to change the color to brown. This is the brown that we have already preset. And let's see, here's what we're going to work with. This is the baseline. So let's start by doing this and downwards. You start from here in the center where you want to have the center point of the tree, and just one more going down like that. So it starts off thin, and then as you go down the base it gets thicker. Alright, have another layer, just paint another layer. So next we are going to draw the branches. So we just branch out like that and have another one here, apply another one, then have another one here, thick and then thin. Now as you can see that when we start off it will be thin, right? So let's begin by starting off thin and joining up to this branch. Let's begin again, thin and join up, and over here as well. thin and then thick. So now we're going to do something which is like having the branches being blocked by the leaves, but somehow you can actually see through parts of it. Okay, something like that. And then that. It has to have a continuation. Like this branch, there's a gap here, then maybe you can see some of it here. And you can't. Maybe you can see here. And then continue. And then maybe you have some over here. I'm gonna change the brush size smaller so that the branch will look fine, and have something here. And there it is. This is the preliminary look. So what we can do right now is just try and drag downwards, something like this. See how the painting will look like when the branches are being covered by all this paint. I think this looks good so far. Alright, so this is what we have. Then we're going to draw the background now. So for the background, just going to tap and drag. Make sure you've created a new layer. And then now I'm just going to use this brush. Can you see this? I'm going to use this star-shaped brush, and I'm going to use this blue sky color, and watch this. I'm not applying any pressure at all. I'm just coloring it here. As you can see, the opacity is the highest, and the size is 194. Now the thing about this brush is, the cool thing is this, you can set the size, the opacity lower, and then just continue on and make it fade below, something like this. And that's it. I'm happy with this. I'm going to set to the lowest opacity so that it blends into nothingness, and I'm going to let it dry. Next, I want to paint the ground. Again, new layer, and the second bottom layer, I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use this light brown, this time using the opacity set to the highest. And I'm just going to paint something like this. Then set the opacity to the lowest, and I'm just going to pull the color out like that, and let it dry. And then you know what I'm going to do, right? The shadow. So for the shadow, again, I have a new layer and place it above the ground layer. And this time I'm using, okay, let's use the same brush, but I'm going to set to the highest, and then we'll see what happens. This time I'm going to use a dark brown, so press and hold to change the color and add this color. I'm gonna paint it over here. Okay, maybe that's a bit too much, but it's okay. I'm gonna set the opacity lower, and I'm just gonna drag it away. Something like that. Again, I'm gonna apply the paint. I'm gonna dry it first, then set the opacity to the fullest, lower the brush size, and then have another application of paint over here, and lower the opacity and just pull the color out like that. So I want you to see this. I hope you can see this closer. So this is what we have. Dry. Then I'm going to apply another one. Set opacity to the highest, lower the brush size, and then just tap, make it darker like that. Then lower the opacity. Notice that I just tap and it will form this spot over here, this dried up spot. That's what the app will do if you do that. It gives a very nice natural watercolor feel, but sometimes you may not want it, but it's there if you want it. All you need to do is you just tap, and then you will have this dark, dried up edge spot. Okay, so this is it. We are done with our cherry tree.